Does that bug you?
I can't tell if I'm doing it right.
You can't,
that's all.
right. Try pinching, try pushing back through here a little bit more. Think about sitting back as you turn. Is it okay if I put my hand on your glute med? One more time. Not quite, and she doesn't quite turn on. It's probably why it might look a little funky, but that's actually a glute tweak for your glute medius. So where from that I would go, I'd probably try sidestepping with some bands or something. Do you have bands?
I don't, those aren't going to work there, though. They're a little too, they're too heavy, and I think that's going to be a little too uncomfortable.
Oh, okay, and so once again, the low valgus in the knees, maybe a belt around the thighs to kind of control that. Or I'm going to tell you, control what your knees are doing, don't let them come in. Push back. A little better, come back up. Try this. This is now adding some abdominals and some lats into it. I'm going to get you to put one hand on top of the other. I want you to press down into my hand. Wait. Easy. Arms up a little higher. Press down, gentle, gentle, gentle. I'm going to remove my hand. I want you to hold that isometric contraction that you have right now in your abdominals and your lats. So I want you to imagine if you're pressing down on an imaginary bar. I'm taking my hands away. Try that exact same squat. Keep the pressure right there now. Squat again. You lost your hip hinge. Come back up. Press that against my hands. Back up. Good. I think it was a little bit better, and I think she had a little more distance. Press that against. Don't go so low. Press out, press out, press out. Come back up. And she's losing it a little bit just because she can't, even against my hands, she's still going into the valgus. So you're just a good candidate to start at a basic squat before you progress. So, but those are all kind of glute tweaks that we do. So three-dimensional movement. There's 3 planes of movement: sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane. Most people hurt themselves in the transverse plane. The 2 types of lunges that I most often do, by the way, your tape was wrong and showing me what a lateral lunge is.
It was right in 1999.
Was it?
Okay.
You're going to take a big step. What I want you to do when you're in this position is basically drop your back leg. When you lunge, you want to think about your shoulders over your hips. You want to make sure there's not an excessive anterior motion of that knee. If your knee is going forward, because people like to lunge like this, that's where the knees are going to get banged up. So what you want to do is big step forward, drop your back knee, and then push right back up. Good. And you don't have to even go that low. Try it again. Good. Take a bear step, and down, and back up. Push back. Good. And that would be a good forward lunge. For a lateral lunge, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to come to the side. We learned a hip hinge, so you're going to push back through your hips, making sure those knees don't go forward. You're going to push right back. The inside leg, or the leg that your left leg is going to be straight. So I'm going to have you lunge towards me. And once again, there's just a little extra forward movement. Try it again. Push the hips back. There you go. She actually looks a little unstable.
Does that, does that feel awkward? Because it probably should.
Yeah, once I get right here, it kind of feels like
And then
my knee just wants to give out.
Give out. Okay, and then once again, not going that far. So if your patient does that, smaller motion, you want it to look pretty. Shoulders over hips. If you're out of control, then you're just going too far. And that's how I teach lunges. I also teach a 3-dimensional lunge, which is actually a posterior lateral step back. So if I was you, not only your lateral, you're adding a transverse sort of plane of motion where that foot turns out and then come back in. And that's usually the last lunge that I'll teach, because there's definitely less stability, and you want to make sure your patient has really good hip range motion. But if they're tight through the adductors, it's kind of gets that. It's getting glutes. It's going to get core because you're stabilizing, making sure that everything looks good.
As a patient progresses, would you ever have them do like an around the world where they go forward, side lunge?
Correct. Yeah.
and back
Yeah.
lunge?
Definitely. But for simplicity, it's sort of like 3 planes of motion. one in each plane of motion, so, and everything else is just a variation. And then to that, you could always add discs, you could add weights, you can add different sorts of tweaks. Once again, will you guys be doing that
Yeah.
in your chiro?
But if you go to
Office.
Buffalo Spine, you might see, well, you have a mat. I don't know, do you have any of the
Yeah,
matrix
yes.
right on the tape on the floor? You'll see that asterisk type of symbol there.
It looks like a big target.
Where, you know, you can go 90 degrees, 35. Of course, you can add upper body motion with that.
Yeah, we'll get into shoulders and stuff
But
like that.
obviously, you're seeing, you know, just working on that one simple hip hinge. You know, how much time do we have in the office? That might be one thing you'd be doing, and you know, again, how much time can we spend on that? So it may not seem like a lot, that Jesus, all he taught me, or she taught me was how to squat correctly, the hip hinge. But that with your other treatment, I mean, there's your visit, okay? We don't have the half, how much time do you guys spend? 45 minutes?
45 to an hour.
To an hour, right? So, you know, we don't have that luxury, we can't do that, so.
Oh, but I'll tell you this.
But that
on-
skill right there, that, you're really helping them a lot with the early stages there, being able to do that hip hinge.
They're like, if they're a disc, and every time they bend forward, they hurt, and you don't teach them how to hinge from their hips, first thing in the morning, they're painful, they go to brush their teeth. If they can't get over the sink and do this, all of a sudden, they're gonna hurt themselves brushing their teeth, they're gonna hurt themselves cooking, washing the
Getting off the
dishes,
toilet.
baking, sitting, standing, getting in and out of the car, so it's from the simple little things.
You hear that a lot at the sink, you know, brushing my teeth, putting my makeup on, they can't do it. Remember, the sink's here, and you're trying to lean over like that, and they're losing it there. They lose their lordotic curve there, and they're flexing through the lumbar spine, so. But getting on and off the toilet is a real problem for folks, because they can't do that. They tend to lean forward and come off, you know, climb up their thighs, so. Should we just try a little bit of that?
If
We
you
went
have a
through?
patient who's real unstable, I'll just show you this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, if
A
you're,
lot of times what I'll have them do is I'll have them up against a wall, which is kind of nice, because sometimes people are real kyphotic, and I'll just have them kind of even dragging their hands on the wall that way. Or if they're stenotic and they like flexion, keep them a little bit more into a flexion by maybe having them reach forward onto a table, especially if they're older population, you're worried about them falling.
and rolling back, I've seen you guys do that even just on the wall. You kind of did that over here, but you can kind of come through and just on the wall.
Right,
Sit back.
in quad, it almost kind of serves as a posterior kind of capsular stretch. Teaches patients about how to maintain a neutral spine, how to move through the back of their hips. Especially sometimes when you get some older individuals and they live in a posterior pelvic tilt, they don't know how to get back there, everything back there is so tight. So it's definitely the patient that you want to work on with piriformis and glute stretching and things like that, posterior hip capsule mobs. But even being in that quad position and kind of having them sit back, a lot of times they'll tell you that they're real tight back there. And that's a patient that you're not going to be able to get up and get them squatting because they can't move through the back of their hips at all. So you might have to kind of process some of that thought. You guys want to practice that I just showed? It's actually the exact same thing that you would do in the gym. I'm a big gym goer, obviously. But I watch people squat all day long, and mechanics are terrible. If you look at what a Olympic lifter does, it's exactly the same thing. Rear and back, knees don't go forward. Their upper bodies almost fall into their laps. They maintain a neutral spine. Good lordosis, it's exactly the same thing. So if you're working with someone, who hurts themselves at the gym, it's the exact same squat. When I first start working with patients, if they have a terrible squat, tell them to do it 4, 5, 6 times a day. It's called grooving the pattern. The more you start to reproduce quote-unquote normal movement, the more likely you'll be able to reproduce it in your daily life. It's more like almost neuromuscular re-education versus just strengthening. It's important too. Sorry. I'm going to stand on one leg, so you're only going to do the population that could actually stand on one leg. It's a nice variation to maybe like having your patient do a single leg squat if you have a patient that can actually do that. What you're going to do, hands on your hips. You're just going to extend from the hip a little bit, and then from this position, you're going to rotate through your hips and rotate back. You're keeping your abs tight. If your